In 2024 and 2025, conventional wisdom held that Russia was winning a grinding war of attrition. The strategy relied on the sheer mass of mechanized assaults and a constant supply of glide bombs to force a slow, inevitable Ukrainian retreat. This chart shows exactly when momentum collapsed. In early 2026, Russian territorial gains plummeted from 10 square kilometers a day to under 3. By April, the advance reversed. Russia lost over 100 square kilometers, the first time they lost ground in 2 years. Behind those lines, the attrition arithmetic has turned against the Kremlin. For 5 consecutive months, Ukraine has neutralized more Russian soldiers than Moscow is able to recruit, with monthly Russian losses now exceeding 35,000 personnel. The strain became highly visible during the Moscow Victory Day parade. It was truncated to just 45 minutes, with no tanks on display, a direct result of security fears as Ukraine's reach extends into the Russian heartland. With casualties mounting and the front lines stalling, Vladimir Putin has begun to publicly shift his tone, suggesting for the first time that the war may be, quote, coming to an end. By combining these staggering manpower losses with the collapse of territorial momentum, Ukraine has effectively shattered the math of a traditional war of attrition. Frontline Russian units had become heavily dependent on Starlink terminals for coordination and command. When Ukraine successfully blocked that access in February 2026, it instantly blinded nearly 90% of the units on the Russian front. While Russia went dark, Ukraine activated Delta, a digital big brain ecosystem serving as their military spine. It fuses live data from drones and satellites to pair targets with the closest weapon system at light speed, removing traditional human bottlenecks. To maintain this link under heavy jamming, Ukraine deployed drones controlled by fiber optic cables. This physical connection makes these systems virtually unjammable. They backed this up with AI-guided kinetic turrets. These systems autonomously track and intercept Russian drones, even when electronic warfare saturates the area. This real-time innovation creates a tactical speed advantage that raw Russian troop numbers simply cannot counter. Ukraine has rapidly scaled its domestic defense industry to a $50 billion valuation. They are now manufacturing 7 million drones a year, a 50-fold increase since the start of the invasion. These aren't just frontline weapons. Ukrainian drones now execute strategic strikes on targets up to 1,500 kilometers away, reaching deep into the Russian rear. The primary targets are energy infrastructure, like these major oil export terminals on the Baltic coast. By striking these refineries, Ukraine slashed Russia's daily export volumes, directly suffocating the Kremlin's primary source of war funding. Ukraine has turned cheap, localized technology into a weapon of macroeconomic warfare that can degrade the capacity of a global superpower. Putin's hope that the West would tire has been refuted. Europe has now locked in a €90 billion loan framework to secure Ukrainian aid through 2027. But the biggest shift occurred in the Middle East, following the outbreak of the US-Israel-Iran conflict. Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and the UAE found themselves under attack from the same Iranian-style drone swarms that Ukraine had been fighting for years. This common threat created an unlikely alliance. These Gulf nations are now turning to Ukraine to purchase battle-tested air defense tech and military expertise. This pivot to Kyiv is creating a diplomatic rift between the Gulf and Moscow. By aligning with Ukraine, these states are placing new economic and political pressure on the Kremlin's alliance with Iran, straining the supply chain Russia relies on for its drone fleet. Despite these strategic gains, the war remains incredibly dangerous. Ukraine still faces a massive deficit in manpower that imposes severe limits on their ability to hold the front. And the political future is uncertain, as the Trump administration continues to push for a peace deal that could require significant territorial concessions. But the cumulative effect of the 3 fronts, digital dominance, economic strikes, and new global alliances, has fundamentally altered the trajectory of the conflict. The ultimate metric for victory in 2026 is no longer raw mass or artillery stockpiles. Modern combat is a learning competition.